We're here to talk about Squeak
Hmm.
and
Squeaky toys.
Squeaky toys, yes, and Squeakfest.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to start this off, because some of the people that are watching this won't be familiar with that, is what is Squeak?
Squeak is actually a modern version of some of the software we did at the Xerox Research Center in Palo Alto that had the original user interface, and it was originally aimed at children. And eToys is a system we started work on a little over 10 years ago, which we do every decade or so. We take a fresh look at how computer environments might be fruitful learning environments for children, somewhat along the lines of the way Montessori thought of making an enriched environment for, or Seymour Papert thought about it's easier to learn French and if you go to France than it is to try and learn it in a sixth grade classroom in the United States. And so there's this interesting question of what kind of enrichment could you do for learning pretty much anything that human beings aren't well set up to learn. And these ideas have been used in music and sports, in the arts. They've been used more sparingly just because the educational establishment has its own ideas about how arithmetic and what they call science should be taught, and computers are still a little bit more of a kind of a social token than a really understood medium for expression. So you can go into many classrooms and see happy children and happy teachers and happy parents and happy principals, but if you know what computers could be doing, you can see that the kids are not doing anything important at all. They're participating in something that is more like a social phenomenon of belonging and identity rather than anything that resembles learning real math or real science.
A common misconception, I would think, looking at eToys, would be to, trying to think of a nice term, the uninitiated, would be that, you're teaching kids how to program.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, well, I think that there's something, there's a case that could be made for teaching kids how to program, but in fact, the lead we followed was the one that Papert originally articulated in the 60s, which Papert was a mathematician. And Papert, after he left South Africa, he spent 5 years with Piaget learning about children. And when he came to the United States, he started thinking about could computers actually be a really fruitful vehicle for helping children learn real mathematics. And because Papert was a real mathematician, he didn't worry about whether the mathematics that was most suitable for children was the mathematics that the educational establishment thought they should learn. What he was interested in is, can we actually get children to do what mathematicians do, just as when you play tennis, you do what tennis players do and play music and so forth. So he was interested in math as the real deal rather than as in math appreciation or music appreciation or television appreciation. No. So, and Papert was a true genius because, and I believe one of the ways of characterizing true genius is they can take something that everybody already knows but has missed the significance of and see what the significance of it actually is. And so he took something that every computer person knew about computers,
Sure.
going all the way back to Babbage. And partly because of his connection with Piaget, he realized that this important thing was absolutely in the psychic space of even very young children in 5 or 6 different ways, and that you should be able to teach them an advanced form of mathematics that also has real use. It's the mathematics that science most often uses. If you simply place it in this context and you use the computer to do what it does, it's a form of calculus, and actually a form of calculus more advanced than what Newton came up with. And it just happens, just like one of those things, if you look at a salt crystal through a microscope, it's a jumble except from one angle, and then you can see it's all orderly rows. And so what Papert did is to rotate the confusion around until he found the point of view that made everything much, much more simple. And I saw that in 1968. And I thought it was just the best thing that anybody had ever thought of for what a computer was good for, because the idea that a computer could actually be an important part of a child's early life, and that could help them to think better than most adults do today, that's about as romantic as it gets. And so I started thinking about this a lot, and I was a mathematician also. So he and I became friends, and I started thinking about it in some other areas like science. And science is much trickier than mathematics because you have to do things in the real world to really do it. And part of the result of that was to start, this is in the 60s, and I started thinking about a handheld computer that would be something that children could carry around with them, and it would have a lot of different properties as a kind of a medium on the one hand and an environment on the other where they could make things. So the combination of a book that has stuff written in it but also has lots of blank pages where you can make your own stuff also, and the content of it would be deep thought. So it would be the strongest thinking we've been able to do over the last 400 years. And so that kind of thinking is relatively easy to do, because you don't have to do anything to have those. You just have to have the idea. And so what we've been working on, and Papert and his disciples have been working on for the last 40 some odd years, is, well, what does this mean to actually do it? What does it mean to make a computer environment that children can explore powerful ideas by actually building them and playing with them and doing what Papert called hard fun. And he also coined a nice term called powerful ideas are those inventions of the human race, like calculus, that sort of gives us an extra brain. So a person who learns calculus, and calculus can be learned by a normal person, can do stronger thinking than anybody, because
they have a tool.
They have a tool, and this tool is actually a thinking tool. So I got very interested in all of those ideas, and eToys is one of a string of these environments, and it's been deployed around the world in multiple languages, and it's a combination. It looks a little bit like a drawing program to some people, or a desktop publishing system, a little bit like Apple's old HyperCard.
Okay.
It has many ideas of Papert in there. It has a massively parallel particle system that was fashioned after a system called StarLogo that another one of Papert's followers did, Mitchell Resnick. So basically it's not an attempt to be original,
Right.
but it's an attempt to try and make, again, something like a Montessori or maybe a Dewey kind of classroom where, Dewey said education is not preparation for life, it is life. So basic idea is to try and put kids into a situation that they know is real, where they can do real things. And so these analogies, you mentioned the music is not in the piano, and the same idea, the thinking isn't in the computer. But when you have a musical instrument and you have adults that understand what music can be, and you have children who are usually happy to learn anything that other people are interested in, then you have the ingredients for doing something really wonderful.